Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Maybe Then in Spanglish. I'm Angela. Have my sisters Marisol and Laura. This week we're going to be discussing co-parenting and kind of what comes with it. This week, I'll say this week, well, since you guys last saw us, I've been preparing for a road trip with 7 kids. So I think it fits into co-parenting because it's like the first long trip I'll be taking with my 4 kids and my boyfriend's daughters. So we're excited. We're excited and nervous because, you know, it's the first time we're all going to be locked in a car together for like 10 hours. I just want them to be entertained. I'm sure there'll be some bickering along the way, but that's what I've been working on. Just making goodie bags and, you know, planning treats. And I'm pretty sure they're going to sleep the whole time and nobody's going to pay attention to anything. But I've ordered vinyls. I ordered vinyls from Etsy that should have gotten here today in the mail. With like Road Trip Squad and all of our names on it that I'm going to be putting on these goodies, on these like travel satchels that I'm making.
You're so extra.
With like personalized water bottles, and I got neck pillows, and my boyfriend's idea was to get neck pillows, so we got neck pillows and like earplugs and eye masks, just so everybody's, you know, relaxed and cozy. So that's what
Oh, that's good. I know we're excited because we wish you were coming with us, Laura. But we're all gonna go up to the Smokies to hang out with like all the kids. That should be a lot of fun. We haven't done that. I don't think ever, really, right?
Ever. Like we've gotten together and like
but we've never actually planned,
but we've never actually like planned a family vacation.
Like to all of us together. So it should be fun. It'll be an experience. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be cool. And it'll be really exciting to meet the boyfriend's daughters, like the bonus nieces.
I'm excited.
That's always cool. But you know, touching on the topic of step parenting and co-parenting.
Wait, what's Laura been up to?
Look, I haven't been up to much at all. Like I'm just like
I know you're studying
engrossed in school right now. Like there's really nothing else. Just that. There's no vacation.
You went boxing today?
Yeah, I went boxing today. I worked out twice today, so I guess I can give myself a pat on the back for that.
And you're doing everything else. So girl.
Next week is my last week of grad school. So as for the semester. So I got
one semester down. See, just like that, one down.
I know.
I feel like it flew by. I'm sure it hasn't flown by for you since you're the one actually.
It was only 6 weeks, so it did kind of fly by because it's like a quick 6 weeks. So.
That's cool, but I'm really proud of you because doing that, working full time, having a little kid, a partner, a dog. That's a lot. That's cool. But jumping onto the topic, I think this topic has a lot of different points and just a lot of bases that need to be covered, I think, at least a little bit. And the topic is co-parenting. That's one angle. That's when everybody parents together. But then you have like the step children relationship, that bonus relationship that you have to really work on. And we have 3 different perspectives, right? Angela is becoming a first-time bonus parent, but she has a stepmom to her kids that she's been interacting with for almost 2 years now, right? So
a little over 2 years,
a little over 2 years now. So you have that relationship with your children's stepmom, and your ex-partner's, dynamic. Then I haven't had that, but I was a stepchild, and Laura has been with a step bonus parent relationship to a very tiny little girl when she met her partner.
Yeah, she was only 1.
She was 1 and she's 6 now.
Yeah. No, she's 7.
Oh yeah, she just had a birthday.
Oh, wow.
She's
7.
Yeah. So you've pretty much like included her as your child from the very beginning. So I want us to sort of each touch on the positives, what we've learned along the way, where parents need to sort of focus, and non-parents, because not everybody coming into a step-parent relationship is a parent, right?
Yeah.
Some people's first time experiences as a parent is through a step-parent, stepchild relationship. So let's just, what are Lada, you want to touch base on yours, since you have the oldest relationship with being a step-parent?
Yeah, but I don't really know where to start, because I feel like a lot of from where I began to where I am now is so different. And there's so many things that I didn't see before that I've grown up and see now. And I think back a lot to how we were raised, in the sense of like, everyone in our family has a bonus child or is a step parent. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Papi had another child. My uncles had an extra child. My aunts, everyone in my family is a blended family, pretty much. So it's like we saw really good representations, all in all, of what it meant to blend our families. Because at least, like, looking at like Theo, he always had, the twins' mom there and his current wife there. And I know it wasn't always like that. And the same thing, like with Papi had, Angela and Manny and Anna there. So it's just all those things were good representations of, for me now. And so it's just like, when I first got into this role, it was really hard because I was so young, and you have to look, and you're like thinking like, oh, are you sure that he's not with this person anymore?
Yeah.
Are you sure they're not doing anything else? Like, when they're having conversations about her, are they like not trying to reconcile their differences? And like, you have all these things that go through your head, and it's hard, especially like when you have never been through that. And I remember in the beginning, like when I would call Bianca and be like, oh, like this and this is going on, she would always tell me like, it's so hard because people who have kids should try and get with other people who have kids. And I understand that now, because it is really hard.
Yeah.
And I went through a lot, and I had to like just kind of learn to get over it and to trust the relationship I was in and my partner and all those things, but it was never easy. I will say, I would like to say I have a pretty good relationship with her mom. Like we've never had like a bicker, an argument or anything like that. But I think because, I'm not gonna say because I'm a teacher, but I guess I'm so focused on what the kid needs. Like, I don't care what it is that you have to say or that you don't like about him or whatever he has to say about how she feels about her. I always kind of stay neutral. I'm like, I hear what you said, I heard what she said, but like, how is this affecting, the child? And I think that's what's helped me now to like get over all those feelings that I had in the beginning.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people forget in their adult drama and their adult issues, when they get involved with a partner that has children, or if both of them have children, they get so caught up in the relationship aspect between the adults that they forget that the children come with the package, right? And it's almost like a nuisance or a discomfort or something to deal with and tolerate, instead of predisposing themselves to saying changing the approach, to say, I chose this person with a child, I accepted that as a reality, and therefore I need to make 100% of an effort on my part to build a relationship of trust and comfort and inclusivity with this child. Because from a child's perspective, it's very difficult to be like that thing floating in the middle, like you don't belong to anywhere. That's a constant feeling when you're the child.
I think about that a lot when she's here, that I don't want her to feel like that, because it's like she's a child, and like she just wants for, everyone to love her and her family, and for her to come here and to feel like she's like loved. And so it's like,
but you do such a good job, because for example, like she has her own bed, she has her own stuff in her closet, she has her own toys, she has pictures of her family on her wall. Like you had the picture of her with like her mom and stuff on her wall. And
no, I don't have pictures with her mom, but she has like, she like brings like her tablet and she has her pictures, but I don't, we only have like pictures.
I remember it must have been like on her tablet, because I remember her like showing me pictures.
Yeah, no, we don't have like pictures with her mom at the house, but yeah.
But she has a space that's safe and that's hers, you know? And I think that makes a huge difference with a child, that is not like, I just have a backpack and you put me wherever. Like, you know, that's difficult, because even if she's only there randomly or periodically, she is a member of the family, and just having that permanence in her things makes her know that she is thought of, she is a member of the family. But even little things that you guys do, like you guys even plan like big vacations and sport, like a special thing.
I mean, and that's like kind of like, you know, it's harder when it comes to planning things, because, and I say it in my perspective, as far as like the bonus mom, is like, it's kind of hard when you want to plan something. Like, for example, right now, like she doesn't have her passport, but we want to like go on certain trips that, you know, require a passport. And I can't be the one responsible for doing these things for her. You know, like her parents are, I can only mention it to them and then they can do what they need to do for her. But it's like, at what point, like, okay, if you guys don't get this, like, do we not get to go on our trip, or do, you know? So it puts me in those like situations where it's like, I'm still learning to overcome when those things happen. Cause I don't want it to come off like it's that I don't want her to go. Like, on the contrary, like you guys need to get your stuff together so she can go.
Yeah, it's hard to be like that sort of third party or third wheel in that kind of, because that is a relationship, you know, between the parents, and to say you're the third wheel in that relationship and managing that is difficult. Angela, what were you gonna say?
No, I said I understand that completely. I know we're newer than you guys, but it was, you know, it had its challenges to plan a trip, because, you know, either one party's available, the other party's not, or they have plans, or, you know, someone doesn't want to go, or they don't agree where, like everybody doesn't agree where they want to go. Well, our kids are older, right? So I guess your girls are smaller, so they go wherever you put them. But when you have like teenagers, like, oh, you know, I don't want to go here, or I don't want to go there, like it makes it a little bit harder. I do think about the whole like traveling out of the country, because we initially wanted to go to the Dominican Republic. And it was, you know, the logistic, and I get that from a mother's perspective. You know, you don't really know your partner, your ex-partner's current partner, so trust them with taking your kids to a whole nother country is scary. I think even if your kids are older, you want to have some sort of control, or just like physical control, and protect, you know, to protect them, because even though, you know, you love your stepdaughter, it's, the mom still feels like she's gonna know best. So I you know, I can understand that. With me, I don't know if I'm weird. My therapist says I just know how to rationalize. So but for me, and I would always say this, and I get tired of saying it, my ex-husband and his partner hit the baby mama jackpot with me, because and I'm not just tooting my own horn, they really did. Because I've always, for a person who never really had that experience, right? Because I didn't really have a relationship with my dad growing up. So I really in turn didn't have a stepmom that I could say I visited or had interactions with, where I know how to gauge or had a semblance of what that would look like, right? Because not even mommy was a stepmom. So it's not like we had stepbrothers or sisters growing up from a relationship my mom was in. Maybe like by proxy, like a, you know, a brother in Dominican Republic, or I had brothers in Boston that were before me, and I had brothers after me, but I never really had a relationship with their mothers. So for me, I had no gauge. When we separated and the kids met their stepmom, and, you know, they started living together, I had thought it was gonna be harder, and I had 100 scenarios. And I also say my kids got lucky, or blessed, I would say, better than lucky, blessed to, although it's had its challenges, that they have a stepmom who's gone above and beyond the role of just, I'm with, you know, I'm your dad's partner and I'm your stepmom. Like, she has earned their love and like their trust and affection. So that also helps me in coping with sharing the time, because I went from having my kids come with me 100% since I was 18. to now sharing 50% of my time with them. And then in that unknown period, like it's the unknown, so it's scary. And all you hear is horror stories of stepmothers, you know, casting the kids out or making them feel like they're in the way. So when we started our co-parenting journey, when Bianca knows the story, like one of the first times I went to drop off the kids after she had moved in, they were all living together. My daughter came out of the car and we kind of got up to the driveway at the same time. And she got out of the car and my oldest daughter got out of the car and kind of ran to her and just like hugged her. And I was waiting for like that pang that you read or you hear about, like, oh, like jealousy or like, wait a minute, like what's going on? Which I guess are normal, valid feelings, but I didn't. Like, it just gave me a sense of peace. Like, oh, okay, like they're comfortable. So I always
them well.
She's taking care of them. And for me, it was like, it wasn't an issue in sharing that role. Like I've had conversations with my little one where she's like, what do I call her? And I'm like, you can call her whatever you want to call her. Whatever, whatever te nace, like whatever comes from your heart, you can call her. And I won't feel bad because at the end of the day, I'm your mom. I birthed you, but she's also your bonus mom. And I would, Jason and I are in the plans of joining our lives together, that in the future, one day they see him in that same light as well. And I think a lot of the issues with co-parenting comes from that territorial
ownership, like you have a sense of ownership of your kids,
of the kids, and then you make your children feel like they're betraying you because they're accepting this new person, when it doesn't matter if that new person is there. Your role as their parent is separate from their role as with that child as their step parent. So I always try to, through things I saw growing up in our own home and issues with co-parenting, always try to, outside of myself, and I, people who know my story know I put up with a lot of crap, in the earlier days when we were navigating through it, because I didn't want my kids to feel how I've seen my siblings feel, or the people that I know go through, outside of their, like, it's not their fault. It's not, just parents didn't know how to navigate through it. So I just always made sure that, like you said, no matter what is going on, my kids and their comfort comes first. And I want to, and I'm implementing, the more I spend time with Jason's daughters, and they're so sweet and they're such good girls, it's the more I want them to see that with me. And I hope that they see me as a bonus in their life. Like, I will never want to intervene or interfere or take anyone's place. I just want to add that sense of security, because it can't hurt a kid to have multiple sources of unconditional love and understanding. So I think that it scares me because I don't want to like fail them that aspect. But I've never experienced it before. I want to get emotional, I'm being all corny, but I've never experienced it before. So I feel like when I really care for them, like I love their dad and they're a part of him. So I want them to also feel like,
and that's a big thing though.
Part of us.
It's like in some situations, in some scenarios, I think that children present
a reminder of the past.
Oh my God, you took the words right out of my mouth. The word coming out. Yeah, a reminder of the past. It's like, oh, I wasn't the first, or they're not, we didn't have the first children together, or whatever the case may be. But dude, like, get over yourself. Like, you took on this. There's plenty of men without children, or plenty of women without children. Yeah. Why stick to that one? Like, move on then if that's such an inconvenience. And just be honest with yourself, because I personally do not believe that it will change for you. I think you just, maybe you learn to navigate it better, but I think that those resentments and those bits of jealousy or insecurity or, negativity just in general, I don't think that's going to go away. I think you just learn to sort of put it on the sidelines a little, but they're always going to be there, keeping you from fully embracing and fully maximizing on the potential of that relationship with that child. And a key thing, I think, in any relationship with step parents and co-parents is to be honest with each other. Allow room for the step parent to talk and give you their input. Because like, for example, I used to tell Laura, dude, if you're good enough to like take care of the child and step in for the child, and you're good enough to be there for that child when that child is sick or needs you, or to pick them up, or whatever the case may be, then you're good enough to have a voice and an opinion, because they're expecting you to take on the role of a parent.
Yeah.
If, you know, obviously you have boundaries that you cannot step on the toes of the parents' decisions, but if you're also involved in the raising of that child and you see certain things, you're allowed to speak up. Now, to impose is a different thing, you know, to expect that just because you spoke, that's what's going to happen, completely different scenario. But you should be allowed a voice, and you should be allowed to participate actively in all aspects of that child's lives, if you are involved. Like I don't like it when like the step parents, like the co-parents are selectively, you know, they pick and choose what's convenient for them and what they want their relationship between the step parent and the child to be. You know, it's like, yeah, I want you to bathe and change them and feed them and take them to daycare and pick them up and drive them.
You can't go to the graduation.
But you can't go to the graduation because it's going to offend the mom. Or, you know, oh, you can't correct the child because it hurts the mom's feelings or the dad's feelings. Like, you know, that doesn't work, because let's talk about how you would be okay with me correcting the child. Let's talk about where we could potentially sit in the same environment.
I think that's like the biggest thing, is that when you get into a relationship like that, you don't really have those conversations. And
they should be at the beginning, like,
right. But it's a lot, because I mean, like, for example, for us, like, we were both young, so it's kind of like, we don't know what to expect. We've never been through anything like this. So it was hard. Like, we didn't have those conversations. And to be honest, when you're young like that, you know, because I think I met him when I was like 21. I had just turned like 21-ish. So it's like, you're not thinking about these conversations or like, you know, none of that. It's just kind of like growing up.
Yeah.
And I think in today's age also, like, you don't want to assume. So it's a lot, like, we didn't meet each other's kids till after we were together for a year.
But I mean, I don't mean like go on 3 dates and then have that conversation.
No, I know, but you don't know. But it does not. But either way, it's hard, because if by the time you're already a year into a relationship, you're in love with this person, you know, you're invested, then now it's time to have that discussion, and then you bring in the kids. Even if you have 100 conversations, now you're dealing with kids that have their own personalities, their own expectations, their own resentments, you know, their own. So it's like, it doesn't, even if you think you have a plan, it's almost like a lottery, unless the kids are little and you can kind of grow up with them.
I'm not talking about the minutiae, like go into the details of like, okay, if they throw a tantrum at the table, you know, this is what we're gonna do. That's not what I mean. I mean, as things come along, you have the conversations, you know what I mean? But I think a lot of times everybody involved feels like they're walking on eggshells. Like a lot of times the stepmom feels like, well, you know, the child has their parents, I'm going to step back and watch. I don't want them to get offended. I also maybe don't want to like be disrespected or create a situation for myself. So I'll bite my tongue and step back. The dad or the mom, you know, they're in their own world and they're ostracizing the step parent, or they're not really seeing the bigger picture of how the child is being affected in the situation. So it's just about, I didn't say like sit down and have a list point by point and cross it off.
No. I mean,
as things come along, everybody involved should know, like, okay, Angela, here's the girl's mom, this is Angela. When the moment is right for your relationship, right? And you guys, let's say, decide to move in together. At that point, I would assume that the logical thing is y'all gotta meet, because you're gonna be raising these kids together. And if it was me, I want to know who's in the same environment with my children.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, hey, look, I need you to know that I'm a safe person. You can talk to me about whatever, good or bad, as it pertains to the girls. I would like to know that I can do the same with you, since I'm going to be spending X amount of time with them. And I know that it can get uncomfortable. But I just want to know that we're on the same team. And even through the discomfort, you know, we need to make sure that we have the best interest of the girls at hand, right? And that is an uncomfortable and weird conversation to have, but only because most people, I think, really put their needs of discomfort and comfort ahead of the children. like, oh, I don't want to be uncomfortable in that scenario. I don't want to be awkward or weird or out there. But bro, if I'm going to be good enough to be cooking and cleaning after your kids, we're going to sit down and have the conversation. Now, if you don't like it, it gives me a clue of what am I going to expect for the next X amount of time that I'm with this person? Because that person's never going to leave their lives. So it's also giving you a hint of what to expect in that relationship moving forward. You are different than like Laura, I guess. You're a grown-ass woman, you know, and you have 4 grown kids. But Laura, when she started off, she, like you said, you were a kid that barely just got her right to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you had to grow
Yeah,
up.
but I know, but it's for me, it's like, I don't know, maybe because I only have my experience like personally to go by. As you know, the co-parent with my children having a stepmom, and then as starting this new chapter of step parenting. But yeah, I mean, we've had family meetings. We just had a family meeting last Sunday where we all, you know, my ex-husband, his fiance, our kids, you know, her kids, like we all sat down and we've had, you know, a couple of these family meetings where we all sit down with the kids and discuss, you know, how we're feeling, or, you know, if there's any, we don't want our kids to feel like there's any gaps of communication, because even if everything is hunky-dory and you have a system down, you know, the children still feel like they're fall through the cracks, one, and they also feel like, okay, I don't want to disturb the peace, so I'm not gonna, you know, say anything because for fear of starting anything. So I think it's that constant reminder of showing them that you are able to work, you know, maturely and in unison for their better, you know. So hopefully in the future, you know, we'll have bigger family meetings because it'll include Jason and his girls, you know, we'll just keep adding to the family meeting.
Has your ex met Jason yet or no?
Yes, they met in December for my daughter's 11th birthday. They met. They haven't like had like a family meeting yet. Once we move in and all that,
but they
sure
talked and all of that, like while they were there.
Yeah, a little bit. That? Yeah, they said hello. I mean, it wasn't awkward for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always say, like, I see my ex-husband, like, I know it sounds so like Southern, like past the Sun Belt, but I almost see him like a sibling. You know what I mean?
Like a what?
Like a sibling, like a stepbrother or like a cousin. Does that make any sense?
No,
well,
I think it makes sense because my best friend is in a situation similar, and she's like that, like you, how like she would be down to have like these, you know,
barbecues and like
she'll do things with him even though they're not together.
No, but well, just when I feel like,
sorry,
no, like, because I see him like that. So to me, it's like there's, you know, affection because we have these 4 beautiful kids together.
But so you guys grew up together since you were young.
We grew up together. Like, I was 15 when he was 17 when we met, and we were together for 17 years almost. So, you know, we were family. You know, his family were like my family. So even though things changed and that aspect of our relationship doesn't exist and our dynamic changed completely, I was okay with that because we have these kids and I know him, like I know. So I understand, like when he says something, you know, even though we've had our issues, I understand where he's coming from because I understand how he communicates. But I see him like, oh, like my cousin have 4 kids. That sounds so hard.
No,
but there's like that level of familiarity, but there's no interest outside of the family.
Because it's too complex. It's like you will forever, regardless of the scenario, you will forever be connected to him.
Yeah, and that's how I hope he, you know, he understands, or in the, you know, future he truly understands that if him and his partner need anything. I remember when there was the pandemic, COVID, I still had to work, and they had to quarantine with 7 kids in their house. So I had to work and travel, and I couldn't expose my kids. So I would drop off, you know, like Easter, it was like during Easter, I dropped off Easter baskets for all the kids and like groceries. Like, I'm just like, hey, like, you know, we're not going to braid each other's hair, but I see it like a partnership. Like, to me, I honestly, if she ever needs anything or he, you know, there's an emergency, like, and I know it's with me too, they've been there in times that I've needed them. So I just want our kids to see that. And I feel like kids, if you're not constantly communicating with them that things are okay and what the parenting plan is, things will start falling through the cracks and they start getting ideas of things that don't even really, you know, exist.
Well, like being a stepchild that never saw her parents or step parents like communicate, that messes with you. You just think it's your fault. Like you grow up thinking that you're the problem, that you are the cause of it, that you are essentially the thorn in everybody's ass, you know, and you never really feel that you're important enough to be a priority for anybody, because nobody's ever willing to put their bullshit aside for your sake, for your stability, for your happiness. So it's kind of like, that was me. That's how I grew up. Everybody's drama, like my parents and step parent, and you know, everybody's drama was way more important than my needs as a child. And I am completely aware of that. I like, as I've gotten older, I see it exactly for what it was. And I always tell my husband, I always tell Jose, you know, if the shit ever hits the fan in our relationship and we ever have to, I've always been from day one, and I know this sounds so dreary, but I've always been so blunt and upfront with him about this. I don't care what the situation is that happened between us. I don't care if he had an affair with a harem of women, if he choked a cow. I don't care what the situation is. If you and I ever end, I'm going to be your best friend, ride or die for life, because we have these kids. But hold on, I don't mean best friends in that way, Angela. I don't mean best friends in that way. Like, we're going to go to the movies, let's hang out. I mean, if it grows to that, yeah.
No, yeah, but I mean,
as far as parenting is concerned, you know what I mean? Like, I will not be uncomfortable because they're there, or their partner is there, or, you know, whatever. I won't, because I don't care more about him and whatever is going on in his life than I do about my kids and their stability, you know? And I will never want my kids to ever feel one iota of what I felt. So if I have to put my tail between my legs and I have to forget and sort of put things behind me, obviously boundaries have to exist. Depends on situations. Obviously, respect and clarity have to exist based on reality.
The personality that you're dealing with too.
Personality that I might have one approach, they might have a completely different approach. But I think I can control me, right? I can control me. And I've told them, I'd be the kind of person to be like, oh, you guys want to go and have a family barbecue so that our kids can see some form of peace and the white flag. And like, I was just talking about this with Laura's best friend, you know, whatever relationship I would get into preceding this marriage, they need to know that I come with an ex-husband who is the father of my children, who will be the father of my children for the rest of my life, and who will be an important person in my life for the rest of my life by default, because I have to maintain communication with this person. I have to, until my children, it's forever, because if they get married, if they have children, it's forever, some degree of connection. So
I think that's where that personalities though come into play, because if you have an ex-partner that like my ex and I are similar in that sense, where we've always maintained from our separation, we've never blurred lines, or we've always maintained like, okay, this is where we're at now, we're co-parenting, and that's where we've maintained the respect. Nobody's try to cross that. Also because he also had his relationship, and I respect that, you know what I mean? Like, we could have done things differently in terms of communication, but I have a friend who's dealing with this now, where her partner trying to maintain a healthy relationship with his ex for co-parenting the kids because they share custody, but she is problematic in the sense where she's like, oh, we have to maintain communication, but she's texting at all hours of the night random things that have nothing to do with the kids. So to me, there's a relationship, it's a family unit, but there's boundaries. Now this person's in a relationship, you respect that boundary. But like, I've met up with my ex to discuss the kids, and like I said, we have our family meetings. My boyfriend's the same way with his ex-wife. They have an open dialogue when it comes to the girls. And I will never, and I've made it clear to him, like, listen, you ask for my opinion in the privacy of our own conversation, and I will give you mine. He calls me Switzerland because I see her point of view sometimes too, and I'm like, but I'm giving it to you. I'm not voicing it. I'm not sharing it. I'm not, implying that you need to do what I'm like. You're asking for from my perspective and what I've been through. I'm sharing that. but that's it. Your relationship with her is your relationship with her, and how you want to navigate that, I'm riding the bus with you. I'm trailing and following.
Like you never involve yourself in like if they're having
never. I would never.
Yeah. No. I've never done that either. And there's been times where I thought maybe like if I said something, maybe it would have helped the situation, but I've always just stayed quiet because I'm like, you know, like
because you don't know how it's gonna be received.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like everybody has their dynamic, especially with parenting too. Like, and I'm like, I will always be a support system for the girls should they allow it. You know, if I disagree with something, I'll have that conversation in private with you because they're also older. But I will never insert myself in your parenting style either. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, you should have similar parenting styles and discipline styles and stuff, but I wouldn't, because to me that's sacred. That was there before I came into the picture, and it's gonna be there after I'm not in the picture. So you manage that best as you can, and then it's just up to that person to set the boundaries and give everyone their place. And
it takes a secure, confident woman to be in a relationship with another person that's not your partner, because indirectly, you know, you have your partner, but you also have a relationship with that other person that your partner co-parents with, indirectly or directly or whatever, you know, but you do, because if you don't have a trusting, loyal, confident relationship with your partner, that's why you usually have the drama, right? That's why you're like, why are you sitting down with her? You know, why are you like, why is she over to your job and having to go talk to you in the middle of the day, or whatever the case is? But you know, they're parents. Like, you don't know what might be going on necessarily in that moment, or maybe you do know, but you don't need to be there like for everything. And so I think it takes a certain degree of confidence and trust in your partner to have that kind of relationship. And that's why I said before, like, if you're not 100% ready to take on all of that, you know, then it's best it's just best
now,
to
I have a question though. Like, you know, you were saying earlier, like, oh, you can't like they can't pick and choose when they want to include you, but then when those like private conversations come with the kid, you know, when do you get to be involved, I guess, if you're so actively involved with the child? You know what I'm saying? Like if you're
that's where your conversation with your partner comes into play. You know what I'm saying? Is like you sit down and you tell your partner, hey, listen, I feel this way, I saw this approach I didn't really like. I don't think it works best for, you know, our relationship or for the child. I think that this is affecting this and that and the other. And then, you know, you two come to some sort of agreement in your home. Hopefully he takes that and talks with his partner, with his ex-partner. And that's if you guys don't have the kind of communication where you can sit the three of you together, because some people do have that relationship.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, if I guess it's like what you're saying, like if you do have that relationship, then it's like you would do that.
Yeah, because you're still participating. And when I say having a voice, I don't mean like you need to constantly be talking to your ex's, I mean your partner's ex.
No.
You know, no, I mean that your voice is heard in your home. That's just like with your partner. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of situations where it's like, you know, the stepmom is good enough for all of these things, but if she has an opinion about, oh, I don't like the way that, you know, I don't like the way that the grandma is, you know, spoiling the kids, for example, and, you know, you're being affected by it because you have rules in your home that you've established with your partner, and you communicate this to your partner and your partner gets mad at you and tells you mind your business. Also, I can't have an opinion about that, but I'm good enough to do all of these things for our child, because it's your child too when you're in that relationship to some degree, right? You're responsible for that child too. So it's also your child while it's in your care. And so that's what I mean. I am good enough to be a nanny or a babysitter, a glorified unpaid service provider, but I cannot have a voice in what I deem to be important in the upbringing.
My friend's going through something similar, and we just had a conversation about this, because she doesn't have kids and her partner has two little ones, and she's like falling completely in love with them, and you know, she's dropping off at camp and picking up from camp and braiding hair and shopping and sick nights and cleaning up puke. Like, she's engulfed herself into this role, and the kids adore her. But there's been instances where there's been friction with his ex-partner, and she notices that when that friction happens, it kind of disrupts the kids and everyone in between. And she's kind of felt frustrated a few times and voiced her opinion, and it wasn't received well from her partner. And I'm like, wait, so it's, in that sense, like, I'm involved in everything. I'm either involved in everything or I'm scaling it back. And my advice to her was, maybe you need to scale it back a little bit, because you can't miss what you don't know. So if you scale it back a little bit, not saying, make the children feel less loved, but maybe not be so available to pick up and drop off from summer camp, and, change your whole schedule around to, do visits and to accommodate them and their parenting plan, then they'll feel the burn a little bit of what it is to have you as an asset, and maybe appreciate your opinion. Because if you're taking on all of this, from the goodness of your heart, because you're accepting him as your partner and what he brings, then you have to be like, it's all or nothing.
But you cannot.
So like, like, I've had conversations, with my kid's stepmom about that. Like, she has her kids, and 2 weeks out of the month, she's, has 6 to 7 kids in the home. And it can't, from the ages of 17 to 4. 17 to 4. So I can only imagine, the level of stress that she's under. I don't agree with you hitting or whipping or berating somebody else's, not even your own, but somebody else's kids. That it's a boundary for me. Don't put your hands on my kids. Just don't do that. But I told her that Sunday, I was like, if they're driving, like, I understand that, like, you have the right to, have a conversation with them, or, if kids are bickering, like, stop fighting, whatever, like, you've earned that, because they see you as another parent. And if, you're the one washing, cleaning, chasing, they scrape, you put a Band-Aid on their knee, like, but it's just,
if you
it's
don't
just setting
trust,
the parameter.
But if you don't trust this person to correct your child in a healthy and positive way, why would you trust this person with your child at all? Because it's as simple as that. Like, if you don't trust your partner, to have a say in correcting your child, like in a healthy way, why leave your child alone with that person? That's an example of picking and choosing what's beneficial for you. So if I'm going to say, oh, I don't feel comfortable with you correcting my child. Oh, but you feel comfortable with me washing their butt, or, wiping them, or changing them, or feeding them, or taking care of them the whole, whatever. That doesn't make sense, because they're both intimate and sort of, interactions in different ways. So it's like, and also you don't want the child to ever think that the step parent has no authority, or isn't a person that needs respect, because that happens too. Like, some children, just blatantly sort of go about disrespecting and
they will find the loop. They will find the cracks in the foundation.
If the parents, of course they will.
The kids will find it.
If all of the parents are not all of the parents, because the step parent has parent in it, if all of the parents involved in raising this child are not like a cohesive unit, then the child is going to juice it for all it's worth. They're going to go ahead and start kicking at the weakest link, right? So, and they play the parents against each other. They create, not because they're bad kids, but because they're in survival. They're in survival mode.
They're in survival mode. Yeah.
And so, you can't, at the end of the day, I'm just a firm believer in that. Don't take on more than you can chew. Como el que mucha aprieta, como una vaina, que mucha
abarca. Mucha aprieta, poca abarca.
Well, if you take on too much, you can't really hold on. Everything has like a limit. So, if you're in a relationship with a child and that feels like too much from the beginning, it probably will continue to feel like too much. So you have to either be willing to adapt and roll with it and sort of, figure it out as you go along. But again, the parents involved have to sort of include you in that process. Otherwise, it's like a waste of time, I think, for everybody involved. Somebody's going to end up hurt. There's going to be drama, and there are going to be issues, and the children usually are the first one to end up like, you know, they get attached and now they're tossed up in the air, or they're in yet another dysfunctional situation.
Yeah, and then it's that fear too, like, you know, they already had to deal with a separation of their parents, one loss.
Yeah.
So another layer of fear is that, you know, second loss, because I feel like it's almost worse than the first, right? Because just when they think that they're on steady ground, it's like their world is shattered again.
And talk to the kids. Like, people are so afraid to talk to the kids. It's like,
yeah,
I remember like little details of things that people, I think, never really pay attention to, but that are important to the kids. It's like, if you're with the kids out and somebody says, oh, are these your kids? Yeah, these two are my kids. This is my husband's kid. That's painful as a little kid for, I think, most little kids. And I think it's important to say to the child, how do you want me to handle that situation if it presents itself? You know, I don't know if you were comfortable. Is that okay? Like, how did that make you feel? Do you want me to just tell people these are all my kids, or these are my two kids and this is my bonus kid? How do you want me to address that scenario as they happen? You don't have to have like imagine the scenarios beforehand, but as the scenarios happen, if you're uncomfortable, trust me, the kid is uncomfortable, even if they're little. So a lot of times parents are so clueless, or just in their own thing that they don't really.
They're so my kid's stepmom, we had that conversation. She's like, oh, you know, like, oh my gosh, you know, I was out with all the kids at the supermarket, and somebody's like, oh my God, you have 7 kids. And she's like, yeah, you know, I started young, these are all my babies. And then as she was walking away, she was like, like, oh crap, like, you know, I don't want to like step on toes. So when we had met for dinner for my 6-year-old's pre-K graduation, she was like, she pulled me aside and she was like, hey, this, I was like, oh no, if like hearing you say that makes me feel okay. Like, you see them as part of you.
Then you communicate and you say, oh, you know, I don't really like it. It makes me uncomfortable, but maybe you can come up with a different way to address that. Or
I know we had that conversation with my 6-year-old. You weren't you part of it? We were trying to find a name for her, and then she was like, I'll just call her by her name for now. This is like too much. I was like, that's fine too. She was trying to figure out what to call her, and I'm just, we went through this whole list, and then she's like, I'm just gonna call her by her name. Like, this is too much. I'm like, that's fine.
It's funny because we don't really have like a lot of these conversations, but I do my best to have conversations, you know, just like me and her, you know, because I think like it's a little easier sometimes since she's like a girl, that it makes her feel easier to talk with me than her dad. You know, and it wasn't until just like recently that she started saying, you know, like, are you my stepmom? You know, because I think it's hard too for her to understand, because since I've been in her life for so long and she's never seen me and I get married, like, she's not really sure, you know, like, what is this?
Everybody's roles. But it's funny. It's funny because she used to call you Rosa.
Yeah. I don't know where she got that from.
It's like Rosa. When she was little. That was the cutest thing. I almost wanted it to
There's this kid I saw on TikTok. This girl, she's a stepmom, and like that's kind of what her page is about, like co-parenting. And her little boy calls her soulmate. So she has like this like montage of like dozen videos of him just calling her soulmate. And they were watching Frozen one day, and Sven, I think, was talking about like about Anna, and no, about Anna, and they said like he referred to her as his soulmate, like this person who just like, you know, makes him so happy or whatever. And then he's like, so you're my soulmate. So he calls her soulmate. He's like 5 years old, like 4 years old. So whenever he's like soulmate, like that's her name.
I honestly believe that step parenting can be really hard and challenging for the grown-ups involved. And if you have older kids, because the older kids, they feel they're very much aware that they're in between and they sort of have to pick sides, you know. But I think with the littles, it's like you just literally have to show them a little love.
And just like include them.
Just include them the same way as you would your own kids. Don't pick and choose, and never isolate them or sort of cast them
Even with
aside.
older kids, what I'm seeing and what I'm learning in my journey into step parenting, hopefully, is that it's not much different with teenagers.
Sure it's not.
They're very very childlike in that sense. Like we all want to be accepted. We all want to be part of our family. Like we all want to have a place in our home, you know, and kind of our family unit. So I feel like with them, like, you know, letting them navigate their boundaries and like letting them navigate, like making it almost feel like it was their idea to open up their heart and their arms. Makes it easier. Like don't impose your role on them, on teenagers, if I could give advice, and they'll come on their own. It's almost like pick that up, no, and then they go pick it up on their own. I'm picking it up because I want to pick it up, not because you're telling me to pick it up.
Just creating an environment that's comfortable for them, that they feel
and
at
just
home. Like a blanket on the couch and snacks in the fridge, and just let them know, hey, you know, there's snacks.
And being consistent. Like I told, you know, like we sometimes have scheduling issues when, you know, one of his girls can't make it, or we can like plan exactly, you know, we'll do with one group this day and with this group another, and then everybody that can go will go, you know, another day and bring friends, or like we just try to like fit our schedules. But I'm like the invitation will always be there. The space will always, the extra goodie bag will always be made. You know, the decal will always be there for every trip, and you know, like it will always be there. And whenever they feel they're ready, then they'll just slide right in. So I feel like when they're older kids, you kind of have to let them, because a lot of times they're coming from a place of anger. So much has changed that they didn't have control over, that you almost have to put the control back in their hands. And if their parents are kind of in the midst of navigating, you as an outsider have the ability to be neutral, and, you know, just open that little door and leave it open. They'll walk through it whenever they're ready. And don't judge them if they're not walking through that door at the same time that another sibling is. You know, if it may take them a little longer, like just remind them every once in a while, hey, I'm still here and it's okay. I respect your journey. I love you, I respect your journey, and whenever you're ready, like I'm here. And they'll come little by little.
Stop being so damn judgmental. Like everything the kid does is not because of you. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some scenarios where like the parents, you know, the step parent is like, oh, okay, son malcriado, or they, you know, they don't have manners, or this, that, or the other.
And they're dealing with a lot.
Don't gauge them based on your adult brain development and ability. Like they're, you know, literally teenagers have underdeveloped parts of their brain that are
they're like 5 and 35 at the same time.
Exactly. It is like,
that's what I say with my kid. I say like with my teen, like they're 5 and 35. And even if they grow up in the same home with the same parents, with the same parenting style, like with the same everything, like we always tell my kids, every head is its own world. So they're all going to react to trauma or changes differently, even if it's the same trauma and the same change. So you have to, and I feel like in our culture, a lot of times kids are looked at like mojones that no cogen cabeza, and they don't have an opinion. Like, tú eres un mojón, no hables. Like, you're going to sit wherever I sit you, and you're going to shut up and take it. And I feel like it's really unfair because we don't, like, you only respect your elders. We're not taught that elders should be respecting kids too.
It's not even real respect. It's more fear mongering.
Well, it's fear based, but still, like
it's like you don't really respect because when they're not around, you're not doing the right thing. You know, it's just like I'd rather not get in trouble, so I'm gonna bite my lip. You know, but then as soon as they turn around, you know,
I have my whole. I used to have whole theatrical. I used to have a whole fight with the mirror in the bathroom. I used to cry in silence and like yell.
It's not real respect, you know, and that's where a lot of people don't even understand. It's like you have to work really hard on like showing respect, like an example of it, so that a child can replicate and imitate that back to you. Because it's like that whole thing that everybody always says: kids don't do as you say, they do as you do. I think a lot of times as a parent, we forget that. Like, you know, we forget that.
I'm so scared for like, you know, those teenage years because I just love working with kids. And like I always said, like even when I was a substitute, I was like, I'm never gonna substitute in high school. I'm never gonna substitute in middle school. Because like they are just so scary. Like there's so much that like
are.
I don't know how to raise a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like I would not even know what to do.
I mean, I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Like,
or like I guess like how you, but you have teenagers, so the fact that like he has like, you know,
yes,
teenage girls,
yes,
like it's like
it is a
you
blessing.
can relate in a sense.
Because I don't see myself like
Yeah.
relating to a 3-year-old or
Yeah.
a 4-year-old. Like a 2 year, like I would love that child and accept it and start from scratch again. But my youngest is 6 and I don't have to change diapers. So for me, it would be a big adjustment having to like regress into that role.
Yeah.
So I get what you mean, like going into a teenager.
Yeah.
What I try to do is what I do with like my nieces and my own kids. You know, it's different from my kids because I'm their mom and I'm like a helicopter but I just humanize myself. Like I'm not a mythical creature. I like doing TikToks too and learning the dances. Like but I will like set you straight and give you real life advice and tell you how things really are happening. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't believe in sugarcoating with teenagers. I do believe in, you know, protecting exposure to kids depending on their age. But when you're 16, 17, you know, preparing to go off into the world, I don't believe in sugarcoating because you're only lying to them.
I mean, I agree because it's like, I feel like growing up, and I don't know if you guys have a different experience, but I guess like my mom and like my aunts and stuff, they were not the type to tell me their past and what they were up to back then. And I think that if I would have known more, maybe I would have done better in certain instances. So it's like, you definitely shouldn't sugarcoat anything. Or like you said, parents should humanize more so that we know, okay, this could happen. This could happen to me.
You would get consejos, but like, don't do it because I said so. Like I try to say, look, I don't think you should, because at the end of the day, like I tell my kids, I can talk to my face is blue. This is your life and your journey. You're going to make your decisions, but you have to deal with the consequences of your decisions and your actions. I can only try to tell you from, I made this choice and it led me to this. So maybe don't do that because they'll probably lead you in the same way. But if you decide to do it, like I had to learn from my own trancazos. You're going to learn with your own trancazos too. But you were told.
That's literally all of life. It's like you said, we can't put ourselves as these mighty untouchables. Our kids need to see us as people. And also that backfires, because then when we're old, it's like we're not human enough for them, I think. And that backfires a lot in today's society. People are really so disconnected from their humanity when they're parents. And just being like a regular accessible person, then they get angry when the kids disconnect from them later in life. Like, dude, we never had a connection then. What makes you think we're just gonna magically have one now? Like, you know? So I think as a parent, like today, I spend most of my day literally like just hanging out with Jose in his room. And he's at that crossroads between like, holding on to being a little kid and, you know, entering those teenage years. And I literally spent most of my day with him today, just hanging out and talking about the most random things, like, you know, oh, you know, like, what do you do if you hit on a girl and she turns you down? And he was like, I don't know. And I said, you gracefully decline, you know, and I'm like going over how to just give people their space and respect them and just be gracious that they said no because they're not interested instead of playing games with you, and just, you know, respect them enough to like give them their space and walk away, you know, with dignity instead of like groveling or something. And so I gave him an example of like a friend of his that was doing that to somebody else that I know. And I you know, how uncomfortable she was that she had to come to me and tell me, hey, can you like talk to that kid? Because he keeps on, like, I told him not to message me and he keeps on. So, you know, you take advantage of these opportunities to talk to your kids. So that when the big things happen, they know they can come to you. But step parents have that privilege as well. You know, they can create those connections. It usually is a little bit more challenging, but like you said, leave the door open. Let them see it in the examples with the siblings that allow you to do it, or with your own kids, and just let them know, hey, if you ever need me in the same way as blah blah blah, you know, I'm here for you. If you ever have a question or want to talk, even if they roll their eyes at you and walk away, it's there. They know. Don't take it personal. It ain't about you. You know, you know, keep on going about your life and let them keep on going about theirs. Eventually, if you're consistent enough so that they believe it, it will, the walls will come down.
Oh yeah, it's trust. you know?
Yeah, it's trust. And if at the first sign of weakness, you crumble and change who you are and just become this ogre, you just showed them that they were right to distrust
So
you.
they were right. And it just,
But they were
you're
right
just
all
doing more
along.
harm than good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, ladies.
Okay.
Any final comments or any final suggestions, recommendations, advice, whatever you want to call it?
I'm excited and anxious for, you know, my journey ahead. I'm optimistic and excited about it. I know it'll come with its challenges, and as a helicopter mom, and like I'm always like loving all my kids, and I know like I don't know if I'm how I'd explain it right. Like when the day comes where we're all like a family unit, God willing, you know, I just want to be able to have that with them too. Like I just have an innate fear of them feeling excluded, because I had that fear for my kids when they were, you know, transitioning into their, you know, with their like transitioning in their relationship with their stepmom. And, you know, thankfully it wasn't the case. I fear, like, I don't ever want anybody's kid to feel like cast aside. Like, I remember one of the few memories, and I'll make this quick, that I have of interactions with my sibling's mom, my older brother's mom. That lady like always despised me, which I came like 10 years after, 20 years after my, no, like 15 years after my older brother. He's about 15 or 16 years older than me. Right?
Yeah.
No, Gio's like, yeah, he's like, yeah. So, and she, like, I wasn't even a thought when she was with my dad, and she met me. We were at my brother's wedding, and it was one of the first few times we got to sit down together. And we're in front of like my extended father's side of the family, and she just looks at me in front of everyone, and she makes this like horrific comment to me, like, "Oh, you're a reminder of like what was like, tú eres un cuerno, tú, tú eras un cuerno," and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, what the? I'm like, first of all, the math ain't mathing, but okay. But then it's like,
Yeah,
you know,
like
even though I
those
knew
people
it
had,
wasn't
like,
true, and I
they literally had like a
respond,
decade separated.
yeah, they had like a whole decade separated. But it just like I responded, I was very disrespectful in the Latino, like, you know, to Latino norms. I told her off, like, no, ma'am, like I was not the mattress that y'all used to make your son, or that my parents used to make me. So why are you bringing me into the equation? I came after the facts. I don't know what this has to do with me, but it just goes to show like how the immaturity of one parent can affect the dynamic with the kids, because that like, and they're so close with their mom that I just stopped coming around as much because I couldn't even be around her. So parents don't see that.
It's affected your
It
relationship.
affected my relationship with my siblings. Yeah, because I'm like, I'm not gonna subject myself to that. Like, there's no way in heck. Like, that's embarrassing, you know? So just keep your emotions out of it is the point I'm trying to make. As a person who's co-parenting, you know, and we're navigating through our journey, and you know, I'm blessed to say we are at a good place. And our kids know it. Stay out of it. You can expedite the process of being in a good place if you keep your emotions and your insecurities out of it. Like, the kids have nothing to do with it. So that's my piece of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's literally how I live my life right now, is like I don't get involved, like you said, with the drama. I focus on how she feels, what's right for her. And I think that that's what works, you know, for me.
And loving her the same way that you do you Olivia.
Yeah, I hear the stories and it's so sweet. I'm like, oh my God, that is so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at your level yet making, you know, baggies with everyone's name on it, but
that's one of my love languages, is like gift giving and acts of like kindness.
Yeah.
So when I don't have like the liberty to like hug them and be weird and be like, oh my God, like I'll just make you a really fancy goodie bag. All my feelings are in there.
Yeah, but Laura does a really, really good job. Like, everybody in the family considers her a niece or a grandbaby or a cousin, or like, she's never been anything less than that. And Laura has always done a really good job at including her and expecting her to be included, which is important. You know, like it's not a choice. And you know,
I'll call people, like if we're going somewhere, I'm like, hey, Aubrey's coming too. So whatever present you got, Olivia, go back to the store and get one for Aubrey. Like, not to be an ass, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you can't.
Those things matter.
Yeah,
you know?
but it's like you can't, like, Olivia's coming and her sister's coming and all the gifts are for one kid and not the other. I've literally bought gifts for her to compensate, you know, to make sure that she has the same amount when Olivia's getting all this stuff with my family.
Yeah. And as for me, as the child that I was in my situation, I can tell you that making the effort, it goes a long way to include that child, to make sure that child has a space in your home, to hold that child, and to make sure that child understands that they're not a burden in your life or a source of competition or insecurity or anything like that. I think that it's important to make sure all the different relationships are clear and we're having them in an accepting and loving way, in a mature way, putting the child's needs always first, like Laura says. So with that in mind, we've concluded our program for today.
Make sure you comment your experiences as, you know, the child of a blended family or a step parent. How did, you know, what steps did you take to ease, you know, into the journey? And, you know, maybe you guys have pointers for me as I'm new in this. I'm excited to next week. Well, no, in 2 weeks, we'll probably be back. So we'll have an update on how that went. I'm excited for the girls to meet my family. And I know they're so open and accepting that they're going to, you know, just slide right in. So yes, follow us, subscribe, like, comment.
Ignore my child bombarding me and everybody else today.
Oh, mine is waiting right on the other couch for me to get off.
It's been one of those days where their hands have just been like everywhere. I feel like I just want to lock myself in my closet for like an hour. But anyway.
One thing with, I'm sorry, real quick, with my little one, like, be patient with them. Like, I notice when she comes back, and it's not that there's anything, you know, happening to her in the other house or, you know, but when she gets back, like the first 3 days, there's like a transition. She's like 2 in the first 3 days. I have to feed her and cuddle her and bathe her and like brush her hair and hug her at all hours of the time. Like, be patient with that too.
That connection. Little.
That's my last piece. So there.
Just meet the child at their level and be receptive to their needs and just go with it, you know? Like kids are interesting.
It's a lot for them. It's a lot.
And they're interesting in that they don't know what they're feeling most of the time. So feelings are usually bigger than they are, and it's very overwhelming an experience to navigate that and process that. So all right, ladies. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed today's topic. Like Angela said, if you have something to add, please leave us a comment, like, follow, share, tag your friends that would benefit from listening to this conversation. Subscribe, ring that bell. Thank you. This is mvee de Spanglet. See you next week. Esta mi despedida, vete con el que te